Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here. And of course, I'm joined as always with both of my co hosts, Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And we've got a loaded episode for you all today. A lot of things have happened since we have last talked to y'all. If you are living under a rock, Blazer Victory Podcast, we did get our media credentials revoked just recently this week, and we shot a statement, posted a statement on our X account, which y'all can follow at BlazerPod, twitter.com/ or x.com/BlazerPod. And I will share that with you on the screen. Before you see that, make sure you can help support the Blazer Victory Podcast by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's free at BlazerPod. Our goal is still to get to 500 subscribers, and I believe we're at 338. So we're not that far off, but that would be a great way. You know, I've had some people ask, like, how can I support Blazer Victory Podcast? You know, I don't have money to give to the Patreon, but this is a free way you can help support us by going to youtube.com at BlazerPod and subscribe and turn on the notifications, like this video, but definitely subscribe to where you don't miss any future episodes of the Blazer Victory Podcast. Guys, can you see the screen? Okay. So let's take it to yesterday, December 18th, Wednesday. We did make a press release on our Twitter account and Instagram account and Facebook account. UAB Athletics revokes media credentials for Blazer Victory. I'll read it for those on audio. Blazer Victory announces today that UAB Athletics has revoked its media credentials effective immediately. This decision was communicated to us on December the 17th. 2024 by Ted Feely, Associate Athletic Director for Communications. Blazer Victory has been independently covering UAB sports since 2020 and has always prioritized providing fair, accurate, and in-depth coverage to the UAB community. We remain committed to serving our audience with the quality coverage they deserve, despite this decision. For further inquiries, please contact John Duncan, Darian Smith, and Jimmy Marion at blazervictorypodcast@gmail.com. Ever faithful, ever loyal, John, Darian, and Jimmy. All right, guys. So that is that's the episode. No. So that is our statement. You know, we posted that, and first and foremost, thank you all so much for the positive support for us, for me, John, for Darian, Jimmy, and this Blazer Victory Podcast. We see it. It's not just UAB fans that have reached out for, you know, whether it's the retweets, mentions, texts, phone calls, emails, DMs. It's all across the country in support of the Blazer Victory Podcast. And we thank you all so very much. You know, to be honest, like if we're being real, we did not realize that this would blow up as big as it did. We're happy we did, of course, that it did, of course. But we just want to start this out. Like, thank you all so much for your support. And, you know, some of y'all that aren't actively on social media have reached out via phone calls, texts. We appreciate you all so much. So a backstory of Blazer Victory Podcast was started in 2020. You know, and we've done this, 5 years or getting on 4 years, but 5 seasons. And we've continued to grow as a media platform. You know, we've tried, you know, in the past writing articles, but we primarily focus on the podcast, the audio form. And that's probably what we're going to do going forward. As of now, we might bring the writing back eventually, but right now we do see our audience takes in the podcast, whether that's watching on YouTube, shout out to YouTube again, or listening to us, whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever. I do think we need to first, can y'all see the screen too? That I switched over? Okay.
Yep.
Let's talk about this. We all three regret putting these t-shirts on. Since I met with Ted Tuesday, I think late Tuesday eve. Well, I met with him Tuesday afternoon around 2:00. That night, we instantly pulled these t-shirts. You know, here they are. So they are not available on our website for purchase. And we all three were on the same page about these t-shirts, and we realized in hindsight we should have never made these t-shirts, and we should have definitely never made these public for sale.
They are hilarious though. The idea of them is hilarious. You know,
and it's things that Trent did say. So,
yeah.
But we're not like, we say that hopefully that people don't get offended and people understand the backstory. Guys, this UAB football season last year sucked. These last 2 years sucked. It's hard. It's hard enough on coaches and staff, but you know, media members too, our fans. There was no harm. We didn't mean to. Our intentions were not to poke fun at the athletic department. I understand that now, and I understand it when Ted brought it up in our meeting. And I said, Ted, we can pull them down right now. We can pull them down. You know, I understand. And then we shared them. And bottom line is, we only sold a couple of them damn things. You know what I'm saying? Like, we weren't out here to make money, and we just thought it was kind of funny. But in hindsight, we definitely regret. So I'll stop sharing my screen so we can talk.
We're trying to have just a little bit of fun in what has been a not so fun situation for quite some time. And, you know, again, I full-heartedly agree with the guys here. In hindsight, it certainly wasn't worth it. I mean, when you look back at it, it certainly wasn't worth it. And if we could go back in time again, the biggest thing that I learned from this situation was that I want the three of us to be aligned in like what we do, right? And it wasn't necessarily that we weren't aligned. We just didn't communicate with each other as much as we would like to. And so like that was my biggest takeaway, like, you know, because we're all three in this together, right? And so, you know, when we talked about it after and we were like, hey, you know, ultimately maybe not vibing with it as much, like all of us weren't on the same page. It's like, hey, that was the biggest thing for me, is like I would go back and not do it the way that we did. But to John's point, it all started with trying to have a little bit of fun. And sometimes you get close to that line, you step over, right? And, you know, that was a situation in which an overstep by us. But at the end of the day, we learned from it. And what I would hope is that there is some acknowledgement and like there's some, I don't know if forgiveness is the right word, but just understanding might be the better word. Like, hey, a little bit more understanding of the situation and like an offering of like, hey, look at all the positive things that Blazer Victory has done and has said over the years. There have been some constructive criticism and again, fun and all of that. But at the same time, there's been a lot of optimism. Go back and listen to our preseason shows before the 2024 season and what we were saying. Go back if you saw any of us at the first game, but we were yelling, having a great time, you know, loving this team and everything. So, you know, we'll jump into the statement here from Ted, but just hopefully I think the majority of our fans and listeners get it, and we're not hiding from nothing. John didn't have to bring up those shirts. We didn't have to take down the shirts. We could have literally just left the shirts up. There were some people that were saying, "Hey, let's go buy shirts." No,
A bunch of
like,
people. Yeah.
yeah, we could have left them up and probably sold a dozen of those bad boys at least yesterday. And that isn't our intent. And hopefully that shows anyone that's watching and listening that wasn't our intent, or we just would have kept them up. So, anyways, I guess we can transition or take it wherever you want to go from there, John.
Well, Darian, do you want to respond before I read Ted's response?
Yeah, just real quick, like we took him down because we want to show that we do have respect. You know, it's kind of like growing up where I'm from. We would crack on somebody or whatever, but what's a joke to somebody could be something offensive taken by somebody else. You know, so that was just the equivalent of us just saying a little joke, like, "Hey, look at the type of shoes. Like, look at those shoes." We just making jokes. It's all in fun. It's in jest, and then but then I do understand that having the credentials do carry like a level of professionalism, right? Like that you. So it's a learning experience for all of us. But the one thing that we can do is take accountability. We don't run from it, and when it's time to say I'm sorry, we can say, "Hey, I'm sorry. Like that wasn't our intentions." Like we can take that down. I understand where you're coming from. I don't. It wasn't. We weren't trying to go out and just like bash the. We didn't do that. We were just having some fun in the midst of a dark season. But again, someone's joke on one side could be stepping over the line for somebody else, and we understand that. And we took it down. We took the shirts down. We could have just and that also shows our intentions and what we want. We want this to be about the football team, right? We don't want this to be about us and being, stubborn, like, "Oh, screw y'all. That's not it. That's not the solution we're looking for." So we just want to communicate that our intentions were just to have fun. And, you live and you learn. And that's a situation you learn from, even though the shirts were hilarious.
100%. And now I'll for YouTube viewers, you were seeing the Ted Feely's response to our statement that came out a few hours after our initial statement. But for audio listeners, I will read Ted's response. John Duncan was never a credentialed member of our football media, and just recently this season obtained basketball credentials. Although we have written policies in our media guides about fan-based podcasts not obtaining media credentials attached, I made the following concessions for John because I value what he does and know he cares about UAB. John and I had an understanding that he still wanted to attend football games with his family, and therefore he would sit in the stands as a fan. He wanted to attend the post-game press conference, but I said I could not allow that since he was not a credentialed member of the media. However, I did allow him to attend the Monday morning press conference because he arranged PTO with his boss at his day job. We both agreed on this. Our decision had nothing to do with John asking tough questions because that is part of the job. He had been very critical of the program throughout the football season, but that is also okay. What was not okay was when he started selling merchandise that actively made fun of our department and university. I cannot allow him to act like that and then provide him exclusive access to our players and coaches for free, which no other fans have access to. John's involvement with UAB football was only attending Monday morning press conferences, which I instantly upload to YouTube and stream on Facebook for everyone to see. John having or not having credentials does not affect his in podcast how they talk about our program, which is what he and I also talked about when we met face to face on Monday. And then he the attached media guide and that was on his desk when I met in his office on Tuesday. It was highlighted with a Sharpie. So a lot to unpack there. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. So, I mean, this year in particular, I did just go to the Monday morning press conferences. That was the understanding this year. But years past, during fall camp, during the season, I was at practice interviewing players and coaches. So I just want people to realize that it's a little more involved, and I get Ted why he made that statement, because that is for this year. I didn't go to a single practice during the year. I went to a couple during fall camp, but not during the season. And in fact, shout out our patreon.com/blazerpod if you want to hear some of those interviews and exclusive, some acts, our interviews. Yeah. So again, a lot to unpack from Ted's statement, and we respect Ted's statement. Darian, do you have some initial thoughts just in regards to Ted's statement in response to our statement?
Yeah. Could you put his statement back on the screen? Because I just want to make sure we're
Yeah,
thorough.
I just closed it. Yeah, hold on. Give me a minute. Hold on. We should be able to. History. There we go.
I think the first thing I just want to get an understanding. I know he said that it stood out to me. He said that John was never a credentialed member of our football media. What does that mean? I mean, what?
Oh, are you asking? Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think what Ted was getting at is that I was never a like sit in the press box for season, or for like a season for as far as UAB football. But I'm glad you bring that up, because we did, was it 2 years ago for the spring game? We did have credentials to view. Yeah, it was Trent's first spring game. So at Protective. So I mean, we've been in that press box. No, I'll buy. I get what he's saying. I think he was saying just during the full season. He was saying that I wasn't a credentialed member, but I don't know. It's a lot to unpack.
So yeah, my thing was what. So a credentialed member is only of the football team only. That's only during the game, because if you could do interviews, or if you could go to the Monday press conferences, I don't see how that
Right.
you weren't a credentialed member. I just thought the only reason that you didn't go to and be in a credentialed area because you had season tickets. You purchased season tickets because you wanted to support the program.
Right.
Right. So it was like, well, I'll use those season tickets and be with my family because I'm supporting the program. So I just want to make sure that is clear, because it kind of makes it seem like, you weren't anything to do with credentialed media for the football team at all. So, I just thought that part was a little spinny. The stuff about the, I guess you can turn that page, because I really don't know with the, what you sent with your family. We just went over that. This is the part that, I feel like, you just got to add more context, with you asking tough questions. I don't think it's a fair characterization, because yes, okay, you asked some tough questions, but a lot of questions you asked were just questions. A lot of opinions we give were very optimistic. I don't want people to, he was saying you was very critical of the program throughout the football season. Guys, I want y'all to go back and listen to our podcast. So maybe just go back and just try to, if you care at all about this, go back and listen and let you be the judge. I feel like we did our best to, I don't even want to say anything disrespectful, but we tried our best to make light out of something that didn't have much light, right? Like we were trying to look at the positives of everything, especially in the preseason. But we were trying to be real with our analysis. We were trying to be thorough, right? We didn't want to give you any BS. We looked at film. We looked at everything. We talked to coaches. We talked to players. We tried to vet all information and give fair information. That's what we tried to do. I do know that things kind of turned after the not freaking Alabama thing, that happened. But I mean, we're human. What do you expect when you have our friend John? If you don't know, that happened. Everybody knows the freaking Alabama thing when John asked the question to allow Coach Dilfer to clear himself up. He kind of attacked John. Well, not kind of. He did. He kind of disrespected John, and we kind of took a turn for the worse here because we didn't understand. Right? We didn't understand why that attack took place. But I mean, whose fault is that? I mean, but I want to mention, and we'll get to that, but we did meet with at least AD Ingram, Mark Ingram, and we kind of cleared that up, and we were able to kind of move past that. But that's for that. Weekly press conferences and one more thing I want to bring up that I don't think this tells the whole story neither. How did we say we're gonna say? In the past, we have been questioned numerous times on if John has been questioned, not even we, because Ted has never talked. I want to be clear. Ted has never emailed, called, or talked with me or Jimmy. It's all through John, right? In the past, John has had conversations about if he should be credentialed or not. This is not the first time, So, and that is because of things that were said. So this is something that's kind of it's been boiling. It's been there. This is not you made the shirts, it's over. But I guess we can go into detail about that more. I just want to be clear because his statement, I'm not trying to say accuse him of painting a different type of picture, but that's essentially what it does. It paints something like this was a one-off, and it was not. And then it was the fan base. We're a fan-based media. If that's the case, I don't think we should. Just don't give you. I look at other people that do podcasts, and they are credentialed. You can listen to any other podcast from Colorado to Florida State.
Right.
I listen to them. They're credentialed. So, if that's the case, if you don't want fan-based podcast to be credentialed, just don't do it in the beginning. And also, from my standpoint, I don't think from his side, I just believe that we weren't valued enough because we were fan-based. We didn't even expect all the blowback. I knew it was going to be big. I didn't know it was going to be this big. I know they didn't know. But we're trying to just fill in the void. Audio, we're trying to do it on the audio side. We respect what Steve and other writers do. And we just fill in the void on the audio side, and we do our due diligence. We watch film and we listen, we read articles, and we got feet on the ground. We try to listen and give fair and balanced information. We are not here to criticize this program. Right? We are here to help grow and keep fans engaged and be a voice. And I feel like we've done a great job at that. A great job. So I could keep going on it, but that would involve details, and I don't think we're here for that. I just wanted to clear up, some of the statement and provide a little bit of context. And I just think that's the tip of the iceberg, honestly. But just provide some context for our listeners, and that this has something that's been ongoing.
Jimmy, you want have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you guys both have said some really good stuff thus far. I'll touch a little bit on each of it and maybe expand a little bit. Just for me, I'll start out by saying that again, I think John had said that we respect Ted's statement and his response, and we do. And as we were going through it, I'll just speak for me personally. We've discussed already about some of the confusion related to the credentialing, if you will. Really, when I read the statement, the response, for the first time, it was a little confusing because there's reference to policy in the department, but there's an admission to violating one's own departmental policy from the jump. And it was a situation where, to me, it's kind of like, hey, I made concessions for John, which he did. I mean, based on what he did. But then at the same time, it's an admission that, well, what is policy if it's to be broken and violated? Like, what's the point of having it? And there's some inconsistencies, in just my opinion. So a little confusing there, specifically around what you guys chatted about, where, John is and has been at practices, many of which he is interviewed. I was looking back yesterday. Jacob Zeno, Jermaine Brown, Ray Thornton, Coach Dilfer for numerous one-on-ones, right? Sit downs. Both of you went to the practice facility and spent a lengthy amount of conversation with Trent Dilfer when he was first hired. You were at the spring football game, as you referenced. Sometimes perception is reality. The perception is that John is a credentialed and respected media member of UAB football. And if you question what I just stated, then you can look at the feedback and the blowback as it relates to the credentials or not credentials being revoked from John. So that was kind of my first thought. Outside of that, when I read the second part about John being in the stands, it kind of just brought me back to, why I think that me personally, I'll speak for me, but why I do believe that others had such a issue is with this decision is because of some of the, I guess, just people that don't realize the dedication and the time and the commitment. Did I say investment? Investment, all of those things that John has put in. I could write a book because I feel like, AK, like polished media member. I'm like, I could tell you right now, like John's man cave with his UAB gear and his Dwayne McBride collection and all of his stuff and his signed helmets. And taking off PTO from work, which is referenced in Ted's response. But this is what our fans at UAB want, is they want more of John. They want more Blazer victory. They want more of just, again, we respect the other types of like media that's covered, but this new media, quote unquote, new media, podcast, video, things of that sort, this is what people want. And I felt like kind of the reference to policy was taking us back to like more traditional, like old school, like, and I understand that people are just doing their jobs. But at the same time, I think that there's just so much more nuance to understand. And so like when I was reading through that again, like I was just thinking back, and I'm so glad that John's spouse, Elizabeth, had provided some feedback too, because as someone, all of us are married, all of us have families. There's sacrifices. I'll speak for myself. There's sacrifices over the years of prioritizing UAB athletics over family, over friends, whatever it might be, and that's not right, But I'll just speak for myself. Like I've done it, and John's spouse brought it up here, going on vacations, carrying equipment. John is always, in a positive way, concerned about this podcast and about our listenership and our supporters. Every podcast this man does, he thanks you. Every single one. Go back and listen to the tape, like every single one. So, just when I read some of the commentary, and I'll skip to the second slide here, I think, or the second page for Ted's response, is I think the sentence, he had been very critical of the program throughout the football season, but that is also okay. I guess for me, it's just painting with way too broad strokes. Like it's just way too broad. Anyone that knows John, who's interacted with him, I remember one of the first times I met John, he's, I think it was Noah. What was it, like the Blazer crawl or like the race, like it, whatever it was?
Yes, the baby crawl. Yeah,
the baby crawl. Yeah, John's walking down the steps, and I can just kind of see it from, distance, and I can hear a little bit. And there are people chanting, Noah, Noah, Noah. And I remember that's one of the first times. And those are people that just knew. Again, I'm getting lengthy in my response here, but it's like to paint a picture and keep it that broad that John's been very critical. You haven't been listening. At times, has John provided constructive criticism? At times, has John been emotional or passionate? Of course he has, because every one of our listeners has. Everybody involved in this has. Like everybody loves UAB. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you love UAB. If you're Ted Philly, you love UAB. If you're Mark Ingram, you love UAB. If you're Trent Dilfer, you love UAB. So at the end of the day, that was just kind of like the emotion stirring through my body, thinking about all of that. Because at the end of the day, what do we want? What would be a good outcome for all of this? A good outcome would be to reverse this decision, in my opinion. A good outcome would be to reverse this decision. I'll say it twice. And if you feel, I think, John, we might be able to transition into kind of how you might be able to voice if you support that as well. If you agree that you would like to see this decision reversed, all of us have talked recently about meeting with Mark Ingram, man-to-man, face-to-face, over lunch, and over the phone, multiple conversations. Athletic director at UAB, Mark Ingram, is listening to UAB fans. Not that he wasn't listening before, but we have evidence, personal experience he's listening to UAB fans. If you feel like and you agree that you would like to see a resolution that ends with Blazer Victory Podcast being reissued their media credentials, then please, I would encourage you to voice that to someone who can reverse the decision. And again, I think, and I know that Mark reads his emails, and I know that he's willing to speak with you, regardless of who you are. And if you're a professional with him, he has been nothing but professional with us. And I would encourage every single one of you, if you feel strongly enough, to ask for Mark Ingram to reverse the decision made by one of his team members, Ted. Ted's decision. That's all I have to say.
No, well said. Again, for audio, mingram1 at uab.edu. And we hope that UAB Athletics reverses their decision. And we feel strongly that they made the wrong decision. So, again, we hope that they will reverse this. But in reality, if they don't reverse it, the Blazer Victory Podcast will still be here. I sent an email out yesterday morning to our Patreon supporters who, pay for exclusive coverage, that there's not going to be press conference coverage going forward if the decision isn't reversed. But we're still going to pump tons of content. I almost said later this year, but, we'll do some, but especially, next year as we are over halfway through December. So, again, we hope that, again, Darian and Jimmy both talked about it. Mark Ingram met us for lunch last week, gave us over 2 hours of Q&A, anything we wanted to ask. And we asked some tough questions, but he provided answers. Some that we still don't agree with, and that's okay. We are mature adults, and that's okay, but respect him for meeting and taking the time out of his day to meet with us. Again, in hindsight, we definitely shouldn't have posted those T-shirts. I guess that was the final straw in Ted's, as we saw in Ted's response to our statement. That was the final straw in getting our credentials revoked. But again, we have since pulled those from our site. They're not up. But as we close, because I know we need to wrap this up, because I know we assume, as always, that this isn't going to be a long podcast, and of course it turns into a long podcast. But I just want to say some things to close. I've always enjoyed going up to the practice facility, whether that's mainly football, but basketball, and just interacting with the players, coaches, and covering this athletic program. I feel fulfilled in that. I love it and I'm passionate about it. And I thought that I've always represented myself and our brand, the Blazer Victory Podcast brand, in a positive manner. One thing that I did not like, and I told Ted when we met on Tuesday, Ted asked, do we as Blazer Victory Podcast really cover this UAB football program and UAB athletics? And I could tell, I was heated about that, but handled it well. Yes, Ted, we do cover this program. We're not the traditional written form as Steve Irvine in covering this program, but we preview each and every game. We have a post game. We have, again, interviews with coaches and players. We're at press conferences. We're at the away games. Just this past year, or past 2 years, I went to West Point, New York. I have been to Memphis. I have been to Navy, the Naval Academy. And we've done all those losses, by the way. But we have done post games for all of those games. And we've tried as much as we can to spend those episodes in a positive light. Now, it has been extremely, extremely hard this year in particular. But I just want to, and I told Ted, I said, we do cover this program. We're just and I understand from the old school mindset that we're just a fan podcast. In these 5 seasons, I feel damn sure that the Blazer Victory Podcast has built up the brand in recognition that, to show that, hey, we do cover this program and we have a, albeit like not a large audience, like AO.com or whatever, but we have an extremely loyal audience that supports us week in and week out. But we started the Patreon, and this is in addition to the free coverage that we provide. We don't charge a dime for this free coverage, but we started 2 years ago to make a Patreon. And we have, over 200 people that are on there, almost 200 people that have signed up for the Patreon site. And you can look patreon.com/BlazerPod. And Jimmy, Darren, we were talking just yesterday. We have a damn good retention rate. Like, we, albeit terrible football season, but we didn't have many cancellations. Because
here's the stat that we want you to hear is, I just looked at the first 50. The first 50 people that signed up to subscribe and pay to participate in the Patreon, of those first 50 people, 48 of you are still almost 2 years, a year and a half later, subscribed. There are UAB players in the NFL that are subscribed. Media of national media members that are subscribed, parents, families, fans alike. Look at the data on the YouTube videos as it relates to our viewership, despite how things have gone, and do some comparison, if you will, even against some other competing UAB athletics media with far more subscribers because they've had their pages for so much longer. I'd ask a question, and sorry to interrupt you, John, so I want you to be able to complete, those points, is I would ask our people that are listening, if you're still 40 minutes in here with us, comment on this video. Do you feel like you receive coverage from Blazer Victory Podcast? Because we were asked, do we feel like we provide coverage for UAB, and we adamantly believe that we do you agree that you receive real, genuine coverage about UAB athletics of all kinds from John, from Darren, and myself? And if you would be so kind, when you do contact, if you do choose to contact Mark, would you please relay that message that you personally receive coverage from us? And it's going to continue regardless. Like nothing will stop us from providing coverage to you. But if you would like to continue to see John in media, on site, boots on the ground at the facilities and all that stuff, then let that be known.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this became about respect. I honestly feel like John wasn't respected enough. I don't think his value. I don't think Ted looked at him as a valuable member of media, and I think he undervalued his importance in relations to coverage of UAB athletics in total. And I think that was a miscalculation. But we're all grown men, and I think we're open. I know John is open and to talk. And like I said, Mark Ingram has been a stand-up man. He's sat down for over 2 hours. We had lunch together. Brad Hardakoff, it's some good stand-up people. It's some good stand-up people on Trent's staff that I respect. The staff, and we have talked about it even through all this toxicity that's happened with football. We have talked about leaving open the idea that Trent can still succeed here, right? We have tried, so many of the fan base just want him gone. But we have tried to keep things positive. We have. Even though John was receiving some of the stuff that he was receiving, we still, throughout it all, was trying to keep people, to have an open mind. Now, we never try to force anybody to say, hey, you have to buy season tickets. We're not saying stuff like that, but we're saying keep an open mind to it. If they do, produce a better, if things change for you, our goal is engagement, right? We want fans to be engaged. And if fans are upset right now, good, passion, and we're here to help them get through it. How many times have y'all heard personally, man, this season, the only good thing about this season was having you guys? Who else did they have? Who else was here? Who getting paid? Who is getting paid? I got to make sure I'm doing this on my lunch break and stuff like that. Everybody's on break. Everybody's at work. John is driving down here for free. He's doing it. It ain't for free. It's a negative to him because he got to pay for all of that. He got to do all that. But then we provide this level of Jimmy. I call Jimmy a machine plenty of times. John, you know what I'm talking about. This dude is doing, he had to take a break from it. This dude 100%. Is doing research. He is doing research. It's crazy. And you guys know y'all enjoyed that. And then you got John doing what he doing, just boots on the ground, talking to this, traveling there, making this connection. Oh, what about all of the other from Louisiana to UTSA to North Texas to Rice, all of these other podcasts and people that has come to your defense? Because why? Because
they are credentialed, by the way, too. Yeah,
they all of them are credentialed. Just fan podcasts, though. All of them are credentialed. And I'm not trying to. Let me not start. No. Yeah, let me not. I'm not trying to do that. What I am doing is making a point of you are valuable. We are valuable. How many former players, once that statement went out, they was like, BS. What? Boom, boom. This former players, a group that UAB is actively trying to engage. Mm-hmm. A lot of them listen to us. A lot of the parents, they listen to us. A lot of the staff agree with us. We talking about criticism. How many times did Trent go on Jocks himself, the head football coach? He would say he's okay with it. He would say we suck this year. Trent said that. He said that numerous times because you want to know why? Because we actually did suck. we're talking about coverage. We should have been worried about coverage against Navy before halftime, right? With single high safety.
Yep.
You know, that's the coverage we need to be worried about. We don't need to be worried about, do we cover? I think we covered pretty good. I think if we was we would be top 10 in the nation in our coverage. Our coverage was not, you know, but all of that to say that I believe, John, you're a professional. You are valuable. This little fan podcast provides value to hundreds of other fans. They're willing to pay for it. They have blown it up. We just put out a statement. They blew it up and they're angry. I'm actively on X trying to calm them down. Like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Because they love us and we love them. We know them personally. Guess what? Because we meet them at Cahaba.
Yep, community, man. We've got this community. Yeah.
But all in all, my last message was I want to make sure that everybody, keep this passion going, because we're gonna take this passion and positive is gonna come from it, and we're gonna put this back into the programs that we love. This passion somehow, some way, is gonna come into. We're gonna support these players, these parents of these players. Listen to the passion of this. Don't look at it as this dysfunction. Right, it's a lot of passion, and we're gonna love your kids with that same passion, right? This has nothing to do with the players. I just don't want UAB to be like a communist. Like, you know, I don't know, like don't try to like control. Don't do that. Kind of embrace. It's like embracing the new NIL Porter era. This is the new media, and we're willing to be educated. We're willing to talk, and we're open for dialogue. Help us out. We're going to make mistakes. We made a mistake. We will take accountability, but we want to grow with UAB, and we want to do as much as we can to help.
And Darren, that was great. Jimmy, any other thoughts?
I mean, don't make me follow that up.
Okay, all right, go ahead and send us out then. Until next time.
Hey, we appreciate everybody. Y'all have a wonderful week. Go Blazers.